Welcome to Webinar 2. It's the emotional well-being, stress, and anxiety. I am your Associate Director and TA for this session, and your instructor and presenter will be Jennifer Landis-Santos. Um, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or to speak into the session. You can also use chat. I will monitor chat throughout the session. And if you have topics that extend past this session, I will create a parking lot and ensure that they are addressed at the end of the class or shared with your practicum and director. But before we get started, I'd like to give you the first key word. The first key word today is emotion. Emotion. You'll want to take that and put it into your keyword tracking sheet. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Landis-Santos. Jen, it's yours.
Thank you, Rita. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Cohort 18. Lovely to see all of you. Excited to be here with you. It's truly an honor to spend this time with you thinking about how to recognize stress and how to accompany clients to move forward towards resilience and emotional well-being, and how to take care of ourselves. How can we be non-anxious presences as health and wellness coaches? So just a little bit about me for those of you I haven't had an opportunity to talk with. My background is in mental health. I worked after I got my master's in counseling as a children's therapist in an immigrant community in Chicago with child witnesses of domestic violence. And I started a clinical psychology doctorate program. And I really had a hard time fitting in there because of my experiences accompanying people in trauma. And I had some real serious reservations about labeling people with conduct disorders when I felt like their responses were in large part due to their circumstances and their environment. And again, I saw the role that trauma played in behavior. And I realized I didn't fit in with this medical model of diagnosis and mental health. And fortunately, the field has shifted dramatically over the past 20, 25 years. Um, so from there, I worked in schools with families. I did a lot of psychosocial education. We were talking about prevention, suicide prevention, violence, drugs. We were really focused on what are we avoiding. And from there, I moved towards career because I wanted to be more in the space of what are we moving towards, not what are we moving away from, but not this what are we fixing mentality. So really envisioning what do you want your days to look like and how do you live a satisfying life. And so that's what I really love about coaching. The underlying principle is what are we moving towards? And so, from a personal note, I come at this stress and anxiety topic very honestly. I have a family history of anxiety, and my 4-year-old at one point was experiencing a lot of anxiety. And every night before she would go to bed, she would ask me, "Is there going to be a tornado or an earthquake?" And it was so odd because we had not experienced either of those, and so it was really interesting that she was really worried about that. And I thought that the anxiety had like skipped a generation or something, but then I really recognized how much anxiety I have. And so, but it's my training in mental health that's really helped me manage it. And so, just want to share some of these techniques that have worked with clients, and also thinking about mindfulness. As I have deepened my own mindfulness practice, I can recognize more patterns and themes in my life. And really, what we were talking about in coaching of how do we make what we're subject to, how do we make it an object, so it doesn't control us. And I feel very passionate about helping others to do this, and I'm really grateful to be part of the ITL community. And so, welcome you all to the ITL community. And so, just as a housekeeping item, if you would like to make this a little more interactive, feel free to write in the chat that you'd be willing to read a slide, just so you can hear other voices other than mine. Just drop in the chat if you're willing to be a reader. So as we get started, I'd love to offer one of my favorite quotes by a Tibetan monk. And as part of the Georgetown program, we are shifting our focus towards being more on the being, rather away from the doing. And so the quote, you can see it here, is Western laziness consists of cramming our lives with compulsive activity so that there is no time to confront the real issues. And so just taking a moment as we gather ourselves in to collect ourselves, focusing on the presence and the being, we can center our hearts and minds and have our body be present where our minds is, and just noticing the beauty of this picture. Just noticing the stillness of the water and the ridges you can see on the mountains. And maybe if you imagine, you can smell the pine in the pine trees. Just take a deep breath and imagine some fresh, crisp, clean air in your lungs. And loosen your jaw. Relax your neck. Drop your shoulders. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your butt in the chair if you're standing. Notice your alignment if you're standing. Feel your butt if you're sitting. And just feeling the aliveness in your hands. And just really exhaling and letting your body relax. So yeah, so it's an overview of what we'll go over today. Stress is everywhere, as you know. It is the common denominator for so many of us. And stress is very personal. It's what is motivating and exciting for someone, such as winning the lottery, could be paralyzing for someone else. And as coaches, we help people recognize options that are possible and partner towards achieving these outcomes. So stress is a key concern for our clients or a major factor underlying their presenting concerns. We can recognize the environmental factors that contribute to distress. We can understand the impact of stress. We can offer some techniques to use with clients or to use with ourselves. And then we're going to talk about the essential components of stress management, such as coping, reframing, and resilience. We'll discuss when to refer to a mental health provider when it's beyond stress and it's more anxiety. And I want to really emphasize the importance of coach presence. How am I showing up? And just thinking about how we embody that grounded and non-anxious presence for our clients. So looking at some data on stress, every October, the American Psychological Association, I think it's the psychological, or is it the psychiatric? I think it's the Psychological Association, the APA. I just have APA here, so I'm drawing a blank at the moment. They do a study on stress in America. Would somebody like to read it? How about Vicky? Would you read it for me?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Recent research and statistics on stress, the stress crisis, transformed, not resolved. Pandemic era stress has subsided modestly, but an 18-year-old upward trend continues. Key drivers: economic precarity, political fracture, technological disruption, and social disconnection. Three critical findings. Loneliness has become a structural amplifier of stress, creating feedback loops with political division and physical illness. AI anxiety is the fastest growing stressor, up 33 percentage points among students in a single year. The treatment gap remains vast. Over 75% of people with mental health disorders in low and middle income countries receive no care, and governments spend a median of just 2% of health budgets on mental health.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mhm.
So Gallup has also released, they regularly release the State of the World's Emotional Health Report. And they talk about while negative emotions remain high, positive emotions are steady. Just some good news in here. And I love seeing this daily experiences of laughter and enjoyment. and feeling well rested are staying at long-term averages. And so this was from the American Psychological Association, and I'm flagging these actions that you can use or talk about with clients. It's a good resource to open the conversation about stress. And this article provides some good tips at the end, which you can see here. Disrupting negative thinking, not ruminating on things. Sometimes we pre-grieve something that will happen, or we feel threatened and afraid before it's necessary. But just helping people notice when they are thinking about something that's a might happen, not a definitely happening. Doing something unexpected. Training ourselves to be more comfortable with uncertainty is something we'll talk about in a little bit. Stretching ourselves to do something new or go somewhere unfamiliar that doesn't have a schedule can help us be more comfortable with the unknown and our ability to handle it. Controlling where we can, just recognizing what we can influence, things like voting, volunteering, community involvement, and helping other people feel more connected and control of their own futures. And research has found that people who volunteer may live longer than those who don't. Being compassionate with yourself, not judging ourselves against others. Some people are better at dealing with uncertainty than others, so we have a tolerance, and some people can't handle unpredictability. So just remind ourselves that it takes time to develop these things and be patient with ourselves. And also taking our own advice just as we would give it to a friend. Remembering that an outside perspective can provide fresh ideas. So just invite you all to speak in what are some things in these categories: health, family, work, community, society around the world. In general, what are some stressors that show up in different realms of life on a daily basis? Either you don't have to speak from your own experience, you could speak from, someone else in your life. What are some examples that you see?
Well, I can speak for I I see that politics, it's a big thing when it comes to it's a stressor in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a yeah, it's a big component, like what the atmosphere, the political atmosphere today. It's very much a stressor, the
Thank you.
immediate family.
Yeah, thank you, Didi. Anybody else?
I would like to say that for some, it might be finances. People might be struggling financially, so that can definitely cause stress.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheila. Susan?
In the community, food insecurity.
Mhm.
Just came from a food pantry today, and it's a really significant stressor.
Yeah.
I think there
Yeah.
can also be good stressors such as having a baby, or making a move
Yeah.
or
You
changing
are,
job.
or graduation or vacation. You are a step ahead. We're going to get there in a second. Thank you all for your thoughts. So yeah, as you noted, there are many different ways that stress shows up, and here's some signals of what we can see in the body, mind, and action. Um, Didi, would you like to read this slide? I thought you offered to read. I'll read.
Sorry,
I'll
no,
read.
I was reading and I realized my mic was mute. I
Okay.
apologize.
No
Health,
worries.
yeah, health implications. How does stress show up in the body, mind, and in actions? In the body, headaches, muscle tension, chest pain and palpitations, fatigue, change in sex drive, stomach upset, digestive troubles, sleep insufficiencies. In the mind, anxiety, restlessness, decreased focus, decreased motivation, irritability, anger, sadness, depression. In behavior, over or under eating, angry outburst, substance abuse, such as alcohol, drugs, or tobacco, or social withdrawal and isolation.
Thank you. Yeah, and so before we go deep into the negative aspects of stress, let's talk about the various components and definitions of stress. And Patrician, like you mentioned, is it Patrician or Patrician?
It's Patrician. Patrician.
Thank you, Patrician. Yeah, eustress is a term for positive stress, such as having a baby, like you said, graduation, making new friends, going on vacation, getting a promotion. It's energizing. It's more within our control. It's more pleasant. It's motivating. It's short term. It feels like it's within our capabilities. It's exciting. It improves performance. And again, it's more within our control, and so it's less taxing on the body. And distress, which refers to the negative stress, and we typically conflate stress and anxiety. Anxiety is a reaction to stress, and we'll get into that in a moment, but stress is often the catalyst that moves people to seek support, either formally or informally. It can be short or long term. It's perceived as being outside of our coping abilities. It feels unpleasant. It decreases performance, and it can lead to, the mental and physical problems we've been talking about already. And so just thinking about how stress can be short-lived, which is more acute, or chronic, meaning it's going on for many years. Acute stress is the stress you feel as the direct result of a specific situation or event. Perhaps it's when you're running late for an appointment, it's something temporary. You can feel the symptoms such as stress and anxiety and difficulty focusing. And then there's chronic stress, which is the result of stress that's built up from repeated exposure to stressful situations and the hormones that our bodies release during these episodes. And that can lead to chronic stress, and including factors such as difficult jobs, or difficult relationships and work stress, financial concerns, the other things that were mentioned, not having access to food, not having access to transportation, political stress, all of those things ongoing can add up. And the stress mechanism is complex. It's a beautiful force of nature. When it functions normally, it efficiently supplies oxygen and nutrients to the cells, it maintains and repairs tissues, and it regulates critical body functions. However, when the stress mechanism is overwhelmed, it can damage the body's resources and produce substances that damage tissues and disrupt organ function. And then it manifests as disease. And so a little history on how stress has been quantified. In the late 1960s, Holmes and Ray researched studies that examined life and stress and linked them to the onset of physical illness. And they really formalized the link between stress and physical health. And they published a life event scales that also included these positive life stressors that we talked about earlier. And so we can take a look at some of these. Here's some of the things that they included: death of a spouse, an injury. I'm just popping through here: marriage, retirement, a major change in the health or behavior of a family member, pregnancy, a business adjustment, a major change, positive or negative, in your financial state, taking on a mortgage, having trouble with in-laws, children leaving the house, an outstanding personal achievement, beginning or ceasing schooling. So you get the point. And I think, yeah, read up, just put the link in the chat so you can have access to that. And one of the things that I've been working on for fun is building upon some of these items and making them more specified for coaching contexts. So it's helps open a conversation too about change and transition in one's life. If you're interested in that, it's called the Life Transition Load Inventory. Just send me a message. My email will be at the end. But it's really helping give clients sort of the full change of cumulative change, so, towards building resilience. So the list we just saw highlights many common life events and situations, and we can add on layers of additional complexity from our society. So we know that there are social determinants affecting patient and health outcomes. We have layering of multiple identities that can create complexity in who we are and how we experience and navigate the world. So looking at historical, societal, environmental sources of stress, we know there are equity and access issues. Poverty, marginalized group, obvious example is African Americans and enslavement. Also, we have examples of forced assimilation of Native communities. And so just thinking about intergenerational trauma, as with enslavement, war, genocide, a family goes through something cataclysmic. In this case, it's a war on their culture. And the family survives, but the effects of trauma are passed down to the next generation. Um, there's lots of articles. It's a very hot topic about epigenetics. So if you all come across those resources, I'm really interested in that. Perhaps you are as well. And then we have, of course, environmental issues such as pollution, contamination, extreme weather, lack of safe and secure housing, access and know-how, transportation and work, getting to medical services, food deserts, all of the things of just being able to get around and get what you need. So as we look at this list, I also invite you to be enamored by the resilience of the human spirit as we delve into these devastating and heartbreaking historical moments, just really recognizing the resilience. And again, it's an invitation to reflect on your own coaching presence. What are your blind spots when it comes to other people's distress? Do you have them for people who are similar to you because you think you know their experience? For example, if I don't have a cat, but if I had a cat and it died, and then I was talking to a client who had a cat who died 3 years ago, and I think, well, your cat died, so move on. But for that client, it's something different. So just really recognizing that just because you have been through something or a situation, it doesn't mean that it's the same as your client. So just really thinking about as coaches, how do we hold space for all of these hidden complexities and identities that affect how we show up in life? When recognizing stress in clients, it's an opportunity to practice non-judgmental presence, and it helps us develop intimacy and trust with the client. So here's where I want to emphasize the distinction between stress and anxiety. Anxiety is defined by persistent, excessive worries that won't go away even in the absence of a stressor. Anxiety leads to a nearly identical set of symptoms as stress: insomnia, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, muscle tension, and irritability. So if you are seeing a client avoiding things from everyday life due to thoughts that are persistent, seemingly uncontrollable, unwelcome, even if it's an excessive, irrational dread of everyday situations, it can be disabling. And when anxiety interferes with daily activities, it becomes a disorder. Anxiety can be exacerbated by medications, hormonal changes such as menopause, recreational drugs, head traumas, viruses, lack of sleep, severe stress, trauma, and of course, genetics. Some people need to learn strategies to deal with anxiety. When you see someone procrastinating on getting started on something, it's the procrastination that's the problem. Avoidance is often the indicator of needing help. In dealing with anxiety, we see the importance of the opportunity to have the experience to master it. Anxiety disorders are real. They are serious medical conditions, just as real and serious as physical disorders such as heart disease or diabetes. They are the most common and pervasive mental illness in the US. And it's also a very treatable condition. We have CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, eye movement desensitization and retraining. And then there's also somatic coaching and medication, relaxation techniques that make a difference. And relaxation techniques, just sort of an important thing to note here. Sometimes they can be used for phobias or panic disorder and depression. But for people who have PTSD, relaxation techniques can be counterproductive, as they can open a space for an unwanted flashback and trigger the client. So just keeping that on your radar, because I know that we do a lot of mindfulness and meditation. And so thinking about that as you work with folks. So now that we've discussed the background on stress and how to recognize it, we're going to shift towards addressing stress both for ourselves as coaches and in coaching sessions. So a first step in managing stress is, of course, self-care. When our gas tank is low, we can't go as far. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, and not putting too much on your plate to help keep it full. And as I'm talking about hydration, I'm going to take a quick sip. Yeah, not used to talking so much, y'all. I'm usually listening. So next to identity, sources of stress, as well as coping strategies being utilized. So thinking about what promotes growth, what hurts, what harms us, and what's neutral in terms of stress. So depending on the type of stressor, sometimes individuals can have a direct impact on the stressor either by avoiding the stressor. So for an example is you can ask to be on a different team if you have a hostile colleague. That would avoid the stressor. You can alter the stressor, perhaps you're on fewer projects at work. But when we can't impact the stressor itself, like some of the environmental and societal stressors we discussed earlier, we can work on our response by reframing the context. And so as coaches, we can support clients to adapt or accept the stressor by adjusting our expectations or attitude. So here's an interesting diagram. This is the transactional model of stress and coping by Lazarus and Folkman. It's from the late 1980s. They're talking about how stressful experiences are construed as person-environment interactions, and it's mediated by the person's appraisal, or is it a threat or is it benign? And secondly, on the social and cultural resources at their disposal. Appraisal and coping set into play events and emotional outcomes, so we can see how processes can lead to emotional patterns and thought habits. And so, in other words, stress is both internal and external, and it doesn't impact all people equally. But distress, as we've been talking about, can lead to illness and negative experiences. So again, just helping figure out how people can cope with stress. And I really love this Venn diagram. It comes from EQI 2.0. And it talks about, as you can see, self-regard. So let's define that by the ability to see both my positive and unhelpful qualities, to understand myself physically, intellectually, and in light of all of that, still see myself as a likable person. So low self-regard can hinder resilience by self-doubt, a lack of respect, self-respect, and feelings of insecurity and inferiority. High self-regard boosts resilience by the ability to differentiate between subtleties in your own emotions while understanding the cause of these emotions and the impact they have on one's own thoughts and also the actions of others. So thinking about then self-actualization, that's purpose. You have somewhere to go and the drive to go towards it. It's the patience of striving and moving forward, the ability to see your potential, to set meaningful goals, and to walk. So this is EQI 2. I think it's in the slide. I think it's in the reference at the end. Let me know if it's not at the reference at the end. All of this should be there. So it's the ability to see your potential, to set meaningful goals, and to work towards your betterment and fulfillment. So low self-actualization prevents resilience because you have a lack of self-ambition, direction, or momentum forward. You can have boredom or lack of inspiration. You can have ignorance or lack of interest in learning and development. You can also have a lack of confidence. So high self-actualization boosts resilience by providing that observable drive towards self-improvement. So optimism, last one, is defined as practicing a positive future view. It's the focus on gratitude despite undesirable circumstances. Being low in optimism prevents resilience because there's more pessimism, more helplessness or hopelessness. Maybe one gives up easily. One can have self-defeating thoughts and judgments, and believing that the future is a place of negative challenge and or defeat. High optimism can boost resiliency by maintaining a positive attitude through adversity. So what I like about this is because if you struggle with one of these essentials, you are still resilient. If you struggle with two of these essentials, it can make resiliency more challenging to embrace. But if you struggle with three, then you're often depressed. Um, so I think it's a helpful way to sort of think about how to get at the what's missing. So now we'll watch 3 video clips that discuss how to frame stress and emotions. This is from, this is about 4 minutes from a Stanford health psychologist who is on a mission to redeem her decade of bashing stress. She discusses how to make stress your friend and how this reframing activates the same psychological responses in the body as courage.
Wondering, can changing how you think about stress make you healthier? And here the science says yes. When you change your mind about stress, you can change your body's response to stress. Now, to explain how this works, I want you all to pretend that you are participants in a study designed to stress you out. It's called the social stress test. You come into the laboratory and you're told you have to give a 5-minute impromptu speech on your personal weaknesses to a panel of expert evaluators sitting right in front of you. And to make sure you feel the pressure, there are bright lights and a camera in your face, kind of like this. And the evaluators have been trained to give you discouraging nonverbal feedback, like this. Now that you're sufficiently demoralized, time for part 2, a math test. And unbeknownst to you, the experimenter has been trained to harass you during it. Now, we're gonna all do this together. It's gonna be fun for me. Okay. I want you all to count backwards from 996 in increments of 7. You're gonna do this out loud as fast as you can, starting with 996. Go. Go faster. Faster, please. You're going too slow. Stop, 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 stop. That guy made a mistake. We're gonna have to start all over again. You're not very good at this, are you? Okay, so you get the idea. Now, if you were actually in this study, you'd probably be a little stressed out. Your heart might be pounding, you might be breathing faster, maybe breaking out into a sweat. And normally we interpret these physical changes as anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead as signs that your body was energized, was preparing you to meet this challenge? Now, that is exactly what participants were told in a study conducted at Harvard University. Before they went through the social stress test, they were taught to rethink their stress response as helpful. That pounding heart is preparing you for action. If you're breathing faster, it's no problem. It's getting more oxygen to your brain. And participants who learned to view the stress response as helpful for their performance, well, they were less stressed out, less anxious, more confident. But the most fascinating finding to me was how their physical stress response changed. Now, in a typical stress response, your heart rate goes up and your blood vessels constrict like this. And this is one of the reasons that chronic stress is sometimes associated with cardiovascular disease. It's not really healthy to be in this state all the time. But in the study, when participants viewed their stress response as helpful, their blood vessels stayed relaxed like this. Their heart was still pounding, but this is a much healthier cardiovascular profile. It actually looks a lot like what happens in moments of joy and courage. Over a lifetime of stressful experiences, this one biological change could be the difference between a stress-induced heart attack at age 50 and living well into your 90s. And this is really what the new science of stress reveals, that how you think about stress matters. So my goal as a health psychologist has changed. I no longer want to get rid of your stress. I want to make you better at stress. And we just did a little intervention.
Okay. So Kelly, her name is Kelly McGonigal. She showed us that our relationship with stress is shapeable. And now we're going to hear from Maya Shankar. And she takes that insight a step farther, asking us not just how we manage what's hard, but how things that are unexpected might actually change us for the better. She's a neuroscientist who wrote a book that came out in January of this year, and she shares vignettes of people who had significant and unexpected life curveballs. And her book has a resilience toolkit, which offers the psychological science for why we tend to think certain ways, and a resilience toolkit for strategies to shift and move through life with greater calm, wisdom, and resilience. So we'll listen to, again, another about 4 minutes of her. She's talking on the day her book came out.
Research shows that we're more stressed when we're told we have a 50% chance of getting an electric shock than when we're told we have a 100% chance. It's wild, right? I mean, we'd rather be sure that a bad thing is going to happen than to have to deal with any uncertainty. Change is also scary because it involves loss of some kind. By definition, we're departing from an old way of being and entering a new one. And when we experience a change that we wouldn't have chosen for ourselves, it's easy to feel that our lives are contracting, that we're more limited than before. But when we take this perspective, we fail to account for an important fact, that when an unexpected change happens to us, it can also inspire lasting change within us. We become different people on the other side of change. What we're capable of, what we value, and how we define ourselves, these things can all shift. And if we can learn to pay close attention to these internal shifts, we may just find that rather than limiting us, change can actually expand us. All right, today I'm going to share with you 3 questions you can ask yourself the next time life throws you that dreaded curveball. In the moment, I know it's so easy to focus on what you've lost, and so I'm really hoping that you can use these questions as tools to discover all that you might gain. All right, let's start with question number 1. This is inspired by a conversation I had on my podcast with a woman named Christine Ha, and it's about our capabilities. Christine was 24 when a rare autoimmune disease left her permanently blind. At the time, she was learning to cook the Vietnamese dishes that she had loved in childhood, but now cooking even simple meals was tough. She told me that her frustration peaked one day when she was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. She struggled to align the 2 slices of bread, and sticky jelly dripped all over her hands and onto the counter. She threw the sandwich into the trash, and she felt really defeated by the limited future that she imagined for herself. Since Christine lived alone, though, she had no choice but to keep at it. She remembers her delight when she successfully cut an orange for the first time, and when she scrambled an egg without burning it. As she spent more hours in the kitchen, she realized that cooking was far more multisensory than she had thought. While she couldn't see if the garlic had browned, she could rely on the smell and the sizzling sounds in the pan. But Christine also realized something bigger. Something new was emerging within her. At the start of her vision loss, she had cooked just to get by. I mean, it was really just a practical thing. But now she was thrilled by the challenge of it all. She tackled harder and harder recipes over the years, and eventually became the first ever blind contestant on the TV show MasterChef. And guess what? She won the entire damn thing. Christine's a rock star. She's an amazing, amazing person. This brings us to the first question that you can ask yourself the next time you face something unexpected. How might this change what you're capable of? When we predict how we'll respond to any given change, we tend to imagine what our present day selves will be like in that new situation. Research by the psychologist Dan Gilbert shows that we greatly underestimate how much will change in the future, even though we fully acknowledge we've changed considerably in the past. Our psychology continually tricks us into believing that who we are right now in this very moment is the person that's here to stay. But the person meeting the challenges after an unexpected change will be different. You will be different. Today, Christine is a world-renowned chef. She goes by the nickname The Blind Cook, and she owns 3 restaurants in Texas. And importantly, she's really curious about what else she can achieve without vision. These days, you can find her snowboarding and rock climbing on the weekends. Christine shared with me something that she could have never have imagined thinking before all this. But if given the choice today, she would choose not to have her vision restored. Though she did tell me she'd like it back for a moment because she really wants to know what Justin Bieber looks like.
She talks about how when who we are is called suddenly into question and we can realize that there's something different, there's just an opportunity to reshape our identity and expand our identity and how we define ourselves. So Maya Shankar, the previous speaker, gives us language for how unexpected change reshapes who we are. And I'd like to share with you Dr. Anita Phillips, who grounds that truth. She uses a lot of garden metaphors, reminding us that we can, before we can move forward, we need to tend to what's growing underneath of us. She focuses on trauma and mental health, and she completed a postdoc at Hopkins School of Public Health. And she comes from the perspective of a Christian minister. She was struck by how a neuron looks like a seedling. And so again, like I mentioned, her work focuses a lot on garden metaphors. And so as we join her, the interviewer is asking her about how feelings can get in the way of doing what we want to do and the goals we want to set.
Growing goals. We do know, but we think that, but feeling gets in the way sometimes of gathering goals. But if we would stop and experience our feelings, hear what we need, meet the need, the soil will be better. The soil will be more well. And then when we grow this thing over time, because we love to try and get 100,000 things done in 90 days, and things don't grow that fast. And then when we're overwhelmed, and then we're snapping at people, or then we're anxious, depressed, because we think that we're supposed to just produce. That's the only thing that matters. But how well you are matters. Your children need you to be well. Your spouse, your friends, your body, you need to be well. When we leave these emotional pain threads, and specifically the pain, because we all love the regular joy emotions, right? But when we allow emotional pain to remain unaddressed, and that sympathetic nervous system is running hot below the surface, it's raising blood pressure. It's releasing extra blood sugar. And so you're doing all the right things for your diabetes, but your blood sugar not coming down. You're taking your blood pressure meds, but they're not coming down. Your migraines are increasing. Your lower back pain is increasing. Your sleep is decreasing. You are not well. Cancers are associated with anger. I mean, these things matter. So yeah, you got the business started. Yeah, you earned enough money for the new car. Yeah, you bought the house, but you're sick and you're not joyful. And so I don't think that that's truly the goal. It's not. Because a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves. Like, I'm doing this, and part of the goal is how you think you'll feel when it's done. Right. And then when that's absent, people are confused. I want you to grow things, because when you grow it over time from fertile ground, you will grow a life that's sustainable. But when you just run past that and try to gather all the things in, and then you're overwhelmed, you've built something that's not sustainable. The ground's ready to collapse underneath.
We are, and I say we, and by we, I mean there's a whole group of women that for whatever reason, whether she had to be the breadwinner, or she was a single mom, or she's experienced trauma in her life, we are living and we're in survival mode.
All the time. All the time.
And honestly, sometimes can't see how exiting survival mode is possible.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the person who's watching this, the woman who's watching this and thinking, yeah, as soon as I wake up, I've got a baby on a tit that's nursing, or I'm waking up and I'm waking up so early already, trying my best to get everybody dressed into school. Or I just picked up the third job because I'm struggling to make ends meet. Or I hear what you're saying, but maybe it's the person I'm sleeping next to that constantly, just their presence gives me a sense of, like, that there are circumstances.
Which is an important conversation.
It's an important
That sleeping
conversation.
actually better.
But the things that are around me that I seemingly don't have a lot of control over.
Yeah,
Like medication isn't on my to-do list.
I get
It's
it.
not something that I can do. Like I hear you, but I don't know how I'm going to get up any earlier to have that 15 minutes or 5 minutes to check in on like. So for the woman who's going, I get it, I understand it. I don't see how I do that.
Yeah.
How am I growing, tending to my garden when it's been 105 degrees outside
Listen,
in Texas? I mean, I literally legit looked at my husband last week, ready to be mad. I was ready to be mad.
The heat is abusive.
Because I'm looking at some plants I just put in, and they looking tan. They're supposed to be green. And my statement to him was, because I was being nice, I was like, so how many times did you water the plants this week? Because the assumption I was making is that you didn't, right? And he said 3 times. And even with 3 times, they were not getting what they needed, or they were getting too much of something that they didn't need. So I'm thinking about the person who's sitting here going, I hear what you're saying, but it's 105 degrees in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm watering. Water, water, water is the title of one of your chapters. I'm watering.
Water, water.
I'm doing
everywhere.
all these things. Yeah. And I am still not living life.
Yeah.
Give me my option. How do I do this in the cracks and crevices of my life?
Yeah. Well, first, I love that you said we're trying to control all these different things, and some of them we can't control. And so there's a few things I'd like to say here, but I'll try and get a couple in. With our emotional lives, I would like us to move from that sense of control to that sense of power. And that doesn't mean not feeling, but that as we learn, and the book goes deeply into this, that emotions are bodily experiences. We can engage our body in a way that shifts our emotional experience internally, even though we are unable to control certain things externally.
Give me an example.
So, for example, that's first thing, wake up in the morning and check on my body. I think everyone can do that, 100%. 60 seconds.
Okay.
If you are listening right now, after you get off this podcast, just set your phone clock for 60 seconds on the timer and just sit there for the whole 60 seconds. I guarantee you it's going to feel long. It's going to feel long because we are never still.
Yeah.
But you realize that 60 seconds is not long. So in 60 seconds, you can literally do that check.
Okay.
It might only take 30.
Okay.
I want people to play with the timer. It's going to shock people how long 60 seconds is in this life that we lead. And check on that. Where's my body? What is it that my body is telling me that I need? If there's anxiety, it usually means I don't feel safe in some way. I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about that. How can I increase my sense of safety? You can do some breathing exercises right there that will help to bring your nervous system into a different state. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8. Do that for 60 seconds. So now we did 120 seconds. Everybody's got 120 seconds. You know how I know? Because we all been on our phone for longer.
That's correct.
So we all got 120 seconds.
They're watching.
Yeah, I love that. Just helping reframe that we have a few seconds for this. It gets sucked into other places like our phone, but we can make a few seconds to do a check-in, to do a couple breaths, just prioritizing and remembering to do that. And so these 3 clips really focus something that Susan brought up earlier, which is FISBE, the focus on cultivating and nurturing the inner state to help drive those behaviors that affect the outer state, checking on the body regularly, developing that awareness throughout the day, whether you're in a meeting or you're driving or you're on the train or you're on the bus, just remembering that you have an option to take a step back, to notice the sensations and the context around you, and to really just intentionally relax the body. And here's a technique that can help you and your clients notice the inner state. This comes from the Center for Conscious Leadership, and we'll listen to about just under 3 minutes of this one.
All leaders and all people are either above the line or below the line. Our location describes how we're being with what is occurring in our life right now. If we're above the line, we are open, curious, and committed to learning. If we are below the line, we are closed, defensive, and committed to being right. Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, They believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, they believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? One thing to know as you consider this question: we are hardwired to go below the line. Literally, our brain is programmed to perceive threat, and when it does, a chemical cocktail courses through our veins, and we go below the line. This reaction was designed to help us survive in the presence of a real threat to our physical survival. An issue for modern-day leaders is that often our brains can't tell the difference between a threat to our physical survival and a threat to our ego or identity. We react and get defensive when we experience a threat to our ego. So in many ways, being below the line is natural and normal. But when we are below the line, we're not in a state, literally brain state, of high creativity, collaboration, innovation, and relational connection. We're simply trying to survive.
You can use this exercise with clients here. Of course, it's normal to fluctuate above and below the line. We all do that. And here's a way that you can talk about it with clients. You can use their words, populate their words for the different levels of feelings, and really normalize that. It's very common that we go up, we get an email, and we can go quickly from a +2 to a -1 or -2, right? Those fluctuations, they happen. We get grabbed. And just helping them recognize and recognizing it ourselves. This is the human condition, and where are we above and below the line? And just knowing, of course, that it's when we're down here, it's harder to be engaged, to make decisions. And so when we find ourselves below the line, it's important to breathe and just really recognize how powerful that biological impulse is. Check in on the state of mind, reframe thinking. What matters about this interaction? What's a good outcome for this interaction? How do I want to show up for it? And what does my heart say? And there's a really great tool that I was hoping to show you. I'll give you a demo of it. I have it, if you see what's plugged to my ear, and it is, it's like a biofeedback, and it can sense your state of being. But unfortunately, I forgot that since I last did this webinar, I got a new phone, and now the adapter doesn't work with the new phone. But just to give you a sense of what it is, it will tell you kind of where you are, you know, if you are in the red, green, or neutral zone. And here's what the tool is. Let me just give you, it comes from Heart Math. And the concept is that when we activate this state of coherence, our physiological systems function more efficiently, and we experience, greater emotional stability, and we have increased mental clarity and improved cognitive function. We also have less irritability, we sleep better. And so just simply stated, our body and our brain work better together, we perform better. And I understand that this tool was used with the NYPD to help them reset many years ago, in between going out on different calls. So it's about a 2-minute overview.
Things fit together and find a way of coexisting in harmony over thousands and thousands of years. And of course, that natural coherence is found in us. When we speak of coherence in a heart math context, we're referring to the natural ebb and flow of our heart rate with our breathing. When we're relaxed, we see that our heart rate follows the pattern of the breath in an ordered and sine wave-like pattern. From a physics perspective, when we are in coherent state, virtually no energy is wasted because our systems are performing optimally and there is synchronization between heart rhythms, the respiratory system, blood pressure rhythms, etc. Most of us have been taught in school that the heart is constantly responding to orders sent by the brain in the form of neural signals. However, it's not as commonly known that the heart actually sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Moreover, these heart signals have a significant effect on brain function, influencing emotional processing as well as higher cognitive faculties such as attention, perception, memory, and problem solving. In other words, not only does the heart respond to the brain, but the brain continually responds to the heart. So I hear you asking, what gets in the way of coherence? Well, it's modern living. Stress, poor diet, not enough sleep, not enough exercise all put a load on the heart. And this puts your heart out of sync because it's too busy trying to supply blood to all of the organs that are under stress. So you can see this easily in the heart rhythms of your average person. And by practicing coherence, you actually improve the heart's ability to deal with all of these demands and more efficiently process the stress that your body is under.
Oops, I forgot I turned off my camera. So yeah, that's a great tool, and it's been a little bit since I used it with clients, but I really like it to sort of help them see how throughout a session, depending on what they're thinking about, you can see the thing change in real time, and it's very powerful, kind of as a layperson tool. So we have covered how to recognize stress, and I have a question for you all. Would you all like to get into groups, breakout rooms for a bit, and talk about a case study, or would you prefer to get into small groups with each other and sort of talk about your own self-care? What would be more meaningful for you?
I vote for the case.
A second case.
I'll go for the case.
All right.
Mhm.
You all are very agreeable today. Okay, well, let's talk about Sonia. Sonia is a 35-year-old mother of two. She's separated and she's working 30 hours a week. She reports exercising regularly, eating well, and sleeping 8 hours a night, in good health overall. So, how would you initiate a conversation with her to explore distress? And what tools, resources, or coaching moves would you utilize with her? So we'll give you about 5 to 6 minutes to chat with each other, and then we'll come back and debrief together. And Rita has worked her magic, I believe, with the breakout rooms. Welcome back. How was that? Was that too much time, too little time?
So I was saying that I would ask Sonia. I wouldn't want to presume that the things that I'm seeing in her case presentation are the things that are actually bringing her stress because I don't know her level of resilience. I don't know how well she's managing those things. I could assume, but we don't want to do that. And I go with the miracle question. I would kind of go, hey, if you didn't have certain stresses in your life, what would things look like if they weren't present? And therefore, she'd be able to identify for me those things, which I don't want to presume. It might be that, she wants to eat healthier. or maybe it's the separation. It might be something, but I don't want to presume. So by asking that question in a strength-based way, then we maybe can get at it, and at the same time, she might provide me what she already knows as well. So what we might end up doing is tightening things up a little bit instead of having to recreate the wheel, because most of our clients know the answers or have a lot of the answers, and we're just trying to help, sometimes helping them get out of their way.
Beautiful. Yeah, just being
Well,
really
but
curious. Yeah, being curious about what is stressful for her and where does she feel that resilience, and yeah, taking that strengths-based approach. Yeah, thank you for sharing that back, James. Yeah, any other group want to talk about their discussion?
So Sheila brought out a good point, is just letting her share how she's doing today, and not knowing what she's really coming there for. We didn't go over that, but just seeing how she was doing. And then I brought up, so she's obviously just thinking about the wellness wheel. She is doing some things right. But her socialization, she did not mention that. So I think I would inquire about that. Also, the spiritual, in addition to just the me time, the self care. I gathered so. And I've worked with people getting divorces and separated. Typically, they don't sleep and, and they don't. So she may want this separation. So just what is filling her time, as far as the socialization, intimate relationships, family. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. What's the resilience in her relationships around her? Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Patricia. All right, our last group. Anybody want to share your comments? Anything to add? Maybe it's mostly been covered. I know it was a short time.
I think our group, Susan and Carrie, they were fantastic. Had zeroed in on a lot of good questions, all three of us. And one person mentioned something that really stuck with me. It says, to ask her two things, actually, to ask her to identify one thing that that she really wanted to work on, and also the curiosity of what brought her, if everything appears to be balanced by the case study, what brought her to coaching.
Beautiful.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you all for bringing your voice in and sharing. All right, so moving on. I love this framework that comes from Gallup. I mean, it's a lot like the wellness wheel, just thinking about the different dimensions of health and well-being, and knowing that the inner state drives the outer state. What is the vision for the desired state? And Gallup does the polls and they do the Strengths Finder work. But they also have a lot of well-being work, and it's very useful in coaching because it also has this important connection to life purpose and values. And we've talked about the negative factors that decrease health, but here's a roadmap for what health can look like. And the research has shown that these 5 elements transcend religious tradition, culture, or nationality. So the first element is how you occupy your time, or simply liking what you do every day. That for a lot of people is work, but not always. The second element is about having strong relationships and love in your life, social well-being. The third is about how you effectively manage your economic life, financial well-being. The fourth is about having good physical health and energy to get things done on the daily basis. And the fifth is about the sense of engagement, safety, community, and liking and feeling safe in the area that you live in. And while 66% of people are doing well in at least one of these areas, just 7% are thriving in all 5. So struggling in any one of these domains, as most of us are, damages our overall well-being. And we can have better months, days, and years if we can do well in more of these areas. So just helping ourselves and our clients sort of chart the journey. And so thinking about, again, we've been discussing ongoing self-care, and really I just want to pause here to honor and emphasize what I see as really a sacred responsibility that we have as we do this human being work to have the honor of thought partner, and we owe it to our clients to have and hold the discipline of our ongoing self-care and emotional wellness. And we can often think about eating well, drinking water, but what we don't put in our bodies is also a way of self-care. And not just thinking about limiting caffeine or alcohol, but not being on screens, not spending time with people who we know drain our energy. So would somebody like to read these other practices?
I'll read them.
Thank you, Vicki.
Ongoing self-care, nutrition and hydration, regular exercise, regular sleep routine, practice of relaxation techniques, breathing and meditation, mindfulness, yoga, tai chi, etc., maintaining friendships and relationships with others, pleasant activities, spiritual life, and setting boundaries.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And the setting boundaries is hard, right? Coaches tend to be helpers. But thinking about time management and setting boundaries, recognizing that we can't be all things to all people, and how do we prioritize? And also holding this tension of sometimes the things that are not done can factor in and sort of creep up at night when we're trying to sleep. And so how do we think about what's important and what's not important, and try to cut down on what we're doing? So I'd like to take a few moments here and think about stress in your life. What are you doing right now that's going well with your self-care? And what can you do better or differently? And I'm not asking you all to share in the group, but I'm just asking you all to pause for a moment here. Maybe write a sticky note to yourself or write a note in your journal, and really just pause for a moment and think about, where is there an opportunity for you to do something differently? And if you're having a hard time thinking of doing something differently, make a list of the things that you're doing now that's working. Because sometimes we focus on what's missing and not what we're already doing. And just by being in this health and wellness coaching program, you are doing something really significant for yourself. And what are the elements of that are working for you right now? Because sometimes when we are doing well, we forget what we're doing that's working well. So being able to sort of intentionally articulate it and come back to it. So just take another minute. And Brittany's sharing in the chat. If you'd like to share something in the chat, or if you'd like to share something in the group, you're also welcome to do that if you're looking for someone to help keep you accountable. We're winding down. In a few minutes, we'll transition to any questions you had or any resources you'd like to share with the group. So someone shared that they're eating better, keeping their mind stimulated with positive affirmations, doing meditations. Someone else wants to learn to practice more mindfulness. Someone else is doing strength training. Someone's dabbling in the world of making yogurt. Meditation. Yeah. Managing pain. Training for a 5K. Having someone to do it with also helps. Sometimes it can be harder to do these things on our own. So finding someone else who has a similar goal makes it so much easier. Cool. Well, thank you all for sharing those things. I'm excited that you are on this health and wellness journey for yourself and also getting ready to start with clients before too long, the next coming months, and accompany others. I'm really grateful to have spent this time with you. I really love getting to chat with you all, and I welcome you to be in touch with me. There's my email on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, we can talk about those. If you have resources here that you'd like to share, that's also welcome.
This was great, Jen. Thanks so much. Really helpful in a lot of ways.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes, thank you so much, Jen.
Yeah, my pleasure, Patricia, and thank you for being here.
Very enjoyable session.
Thank you, Didi.
Thank you, Jen.
Again, thanks, Jen, for such a great presentation today.
Thanks,
share with
Rita,
you-
for all your help in posting everything.
Yes, thank you, Rita.
Yeah.
You're very
Applause to
welcome.
Rita.
Well, let me give you the second key word. We don't want to go off without that. It's eustress. The positive eustress.
And that was spelled EUSTRESS.
Yes. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
And you also. Thank you.